When you are implementing a strategy and when you are thinking right, that only has a 5% impact on your outcomes. And when you're changing your discipline or you're instilling discipline in yourself or you're shifting your belief system, that only has a 35% impact on your outcomes. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions can take you to some extent, but they'll only help you so far. The one thing that I have recently discovered is going into something called the energetic blueprint. This is exactly what's going to help you if you are somebody who's open to going beyond your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Because your blueprint is actually a layer that's deeper than the subconscious level. And your energetic blueprint determines 65% of all your outcomes. The only gap between where you are and where you want to be is just an unconscious, unknown inner resistance that's in your energetic blueprint. Whenever we are out to achieve a goal or achieve anything that we desire, there are a couple of things that we normally do. So nowadays, you hear people talking about mindset, the discipline, belief system, and strategy. And strategy is always the key. Today I'm going to go beyond mindset, discipline, belief system, and strategy. But let's start with those first. So strategy is an obvious one, because if we don't implement a strategy, we can never achieve our goal, right? We must have a plan. We must execute it so that we can have the exact action steps. And then we have mindset. Now, I want you to understand that your mindset is mostly at the conscious level. When people talk about having a certain belief system or having certain kind of thinking in order to achieve what it is that they want. But haven't you noticed that a lot of people have started thinking differently? But why is it that they can't really achieve what it is that they want? And then they go into belief. So they say that, okay, if I'm thinking right, but so maybe then my belief system is what needs to be corrected, or I need to be more disciplined. So when we talk about discipline and changing of belief system, now this happens at something called the subconscious level. So when you are implementing a strategy and when you are thinking right, that only has a 5% impact on your outcomes. And then when you're changing your discipline or you're instilling discipline in yourself or you're shifting your belief system, that only has a 35% impact on your outcomes. So there is an unknown inner resistance in you that's actually getting in the way of what it is that you want. It's between you and what it is that you desire. Now, before I talk about that, another point that I'd like to mention is that, when people talk about changing the belief system, right? They talk about things like gratitude, they talk about affirmations, they talk about meditations, healings, visualization. So again, all these are only impacting your subconscious mind, which only has a 35% impact, because you might have noticed that a lot of people are doing a lot of these things, a lot of these techniques are rampant out there, and everybody is trying to implement them. But why is it that a lot of people are still stuck? Because the subconscious is only giving you 35% of the outcomes. Now, when we talk about discipline, or not discipline, if we talk about strategy, for instance, and thinking right? Now, that's another thing a lot of people are trying to do. But again, as I said, it only has a 5% impact. So today I want you to understand that your thoughts, feelings, and actions can take you to some extent, but they'll only help you so far. Now, the one thing that I have recently discovered is going into something called the energetic blueprint. And this is exactly what's going to help you if you are somebody who's open to going beyond your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Because your blueprint is actually a layer that's deeper than the subconscious level. And your energetic blueprint determines 65% of all your outcomes. So what happens? Your energetic blueprint actually has certain patterns that are running in it that you're not even aware of. There are so many kinds of patterns that we hold in our energetic blueprint that have come from generations that we don't even know about. And these are the ones that are creating an unknown resistance between where you are and what it is that you desire. So if you are somebody who's tried all the mindset work, you've been disciplining yourself, you have all the good habits, all the right habits, right? You've been doing all the affirmations, the visualizations, meditations, the healings. But if you haven't really gotten to where it is that you want, then you need to go into your energetic blueprint. So your energetic blueprint holds patterns that have been passed down from your lineage. A very good example that actually resonates with me personally is the ability to speak up. So there is a pattern that's called the visibility pattern or the fear of visibility pattern. So what happens is that even if you're somebody who speaks up, but you might not be getting as much traction that you want. You know, when you are putting yourself out there, but you're not getting as much traction as you desire. This is because you run something called the fear of visibility pattern that was passed down from different generations that you come from. They come from your lineage. So a very good example is that, if somebody in your family in the past was punished for speaking up, for speaking the truth, for instance, that fear was passed down to you. So even if you are somebody who speaks up, you might not be getting the attention, the traction that you desire, because that fear is unconsciously pulling you back without your knowledge. So here you are implementing a strategy, trying to be as visible as possible, but because this pattern is unconsciously pulling you back, it's bringing you back to the status quo. Here you are wondering, why is it that I'm trying so much, but it's not working the way I'd like it to work, right? So that's one example. Another obvious one is money, income, because most people are trying to achieve a certain level of income. But why is it that regardless of the best strategies, the best techniques in terms of visualizations, healing, meditations, whatnot, hypnotherapy may it be, they're still not able to achieve the income level that they want? Because they have certain patterns running in their energetic blueprint, like scarcity, right? Scarcity is a very common one. There's stress around money. There's something called fear of wealth. So when some of these patterns are present in your energetic blueprint, then they unconsciously pull you back without your knowledge. So if you are somebody who's been very anxious around money, or anxious about, where your next business will come from, where your next income, where your next client will come from, understand that it has very little to do with strategy, but it has everything to do with your energetic blueprint. So once again, the only gap between where you are and where you want to be is just an unconscious, unknown inner resistance that's in your energetic blueprint. That's simply where the gap needs to be closed. If you are somebody who wants to learn how to close this gap, then do get in touch with us so that we can hold your hand through this process.